Thank you for joining. Combining requirements engineering and testing in Agile. I started off as a tester about 18 years ago, 19 years by now. About 9 years ago, I became a requirements analyst, and it surely made me a better tester. And I hope I will make you positive about requirements analysis and combining it with your job. First of all, and I suppose this was working, but yeah, here it is. About this presentation, you see a cloud over here, and some people ask me, is it a vision presentation? Is it a new vision you have? We should develop in that direction. What I'm going to tell you is not an air castle. It's actually happening in, shouldn't say real world, the unicorn world. This presentation is based on my own experience, but also the experience of about 8 of my colleagues. So no, it's not an air castle. It's more like a unicorn presentation. Welcome to the Agile Unicorn Days. This is me. That hurts. I'm very happy to be here. Vice President of Cisco, 200 employees, specialized in testing, requirements, quality assurance, and process improvement. These are the books I wrote, and I don't expect anyone to have read them all, I hope. Most of them are about CMMI. My last book is in English. And I'm very active in the TMMI community. I'm not sure if this is wise to say out loud in this community. But I'm one of the authors of developers, I have to say, of TMMI. What's the agenda? Requirements in Agile. First of all, a lot of companies say, "Hey, we're doing Agile, so we don't need requirements anymore." And this is the most stupid thought I've ever heard for the last few years. The outline of the idea and combining what's the consequences of combining requirements and Agile in one person in one project. And what does it mean? Could it mean for you? It could be a future. I'm not sure about that. But if it is a future, if we're going to combine it, what does it mean for you? Requirements in Agile. I doubted really long should I take this slide in or not. Everybody's familiar with Agile, but so I'll keep it short. But in Waterfall, we make all the business requirements for the project. We make all the user requirements and try to be complete on it, and then we make all the system requirements. And then we find out, when we realize some of the system requirements, that maybe we should change these system requirements, and we've realized these user requirements, maybe we should change these user requirements. So we better be agile. For the complete project, the goals of the project will always be on there. Maybe they change, okay, but for the complete project, they will always be analyzed up front. User requirements for a part and the system requirements for a part. And how does that look in detail for an Agile project? I was very confused, actually, when I was finishing my sheets last night, actually. You have to unicorn your presentation, so you have to work on it. And during these days, no one said the word product vision. Maybe in a track where I wasn't, but nobody talked about the product vision, which is quite stupid, I think. It's one of the most important things. What's at the end of the horizon? What's this dot we want to reach? Of course, this dot is going to change. But how do you know if specific user stories are in line with the vision of the organization, the long-term vision? I think this is a very important document. And in Agile projects where we really are involved, we always make a product vision. So maybe we should talk about that a bit more, but not today. Then the product backlog. Some people say, no, we don't make user requirements anymore. We make user stories. User stories is another technique for defining user requirements. It's nothing else. And then you have the sprints, and that delivers value. So if you look at it this way, you will see the different levels of requirements, business requirements, user requirements, system requirements. You will see them within an Agile project, and that's what we're actually doing in practice. I have to avoid this real world word. So, And of course, there are different persons responsible. The product owner, that's not a problem we see very often, and I haven't heard anybody about it, that the product owner doesn't have enough time to do all his work. He should make sure that every user story is in line with the product vision. He should define the user stories. He should he should explain the user stories within the Scrum teams. So he has a lot of work to do, and especially with big projects, he can't do it in even 80 hours. So he needs support, and sometimes you see major product owners with minor product owners or something like that, or the super product owner, or sometimes requirements analysts. But that's his responsibility, and here you have the responsibility of the Scrum team. And of course, they overlap. For the people who were in the same room at the presentation before, maybe these are the same circles as he meant, where here was the conversation between the team and the business, the product owner. I think it's about the same. I don't see the guy who presented before, but so this is how you do Agile how we do Agile in project. If you don't mix it. But the outline of the idea. Let's go to the combining of testing and requirements analysis. Very short to Agile, to traditional again, and that's where I started testing. We had at least 4 teams: users, requirements engineers, developers, testers, and there were literally walls between them. They were sitting in different rooms, they were sitting at different lunch tables, and they were talking with each other by documentation, which is not the best way to talk with each other, I think. That's an open door, I guess. Well, the first thing we're going to do when we're starting to do Agile is sometimes literally break down those walls. I've seen it happen. It was not breaking down with a sledgehammer, but just uninstall them and screwing them out, and so get the walls down. And the second thing, we don't talk about tasks, we talk about roles. So in an Agile team, you're not a tester. You are a team member. And because you have special skills on testing, you will probably do most testing. But let's say that this is one person. He should maybe do some work for the user, or maybe do some work for the requirements engineer, maybe do some work for development. But the other way around, of course, also, if you're not doing real good test-driven development, then you will end up testing at the end of the sprint, and then everybody is testing, of course. So we're a team, we're combining. The only thing I'm saying is let's really combine this into one person. Let's one person define the requirement, elicitate the requirements, prepare testing, execute testing as the main responsibility. Of course, we still have work to do for the developer, still have work to do for the user, and they help us, of course. But the main responsibility for one person is to elicitate the requirements, analyze them, document them, but also do the testing. How does it look in detail? What are the testing and requirements tasks for this person? Well, first of all, I'm going to step down because I'm going to read it, what will be on the screen. I was quite confused too. Backlog grooming, in my... who's familiar with backlog grooming? Most of you are not familiar with backlog grooming. I thought this was a general, very much used practice, actually. I thought everybody was doing backlog grooming. At least at our company, we teach them how to do this. And I heard no one speaking about it. What's backlog grooming? One of the lesser known but valuable guidelines in Scrum is that 5 or 10% of each sprint must be dedicated by the team to refining or grooming the product backlog. This includes detailed requirements analysis. This is not my text. Don't believe me, please. This is Jeff Sutherland, the Scrum papers. You can find it on the internet. It's brilliant work. It's got very much out of it. So don't buy my book. Download this one and read it. It's really good. And we do this at every project where we are really involved. And this is more than playing poker. Of course, is everybody familiar with planning poker? Yeah. Okay, I see everybody nodding. So, it's more than playing poker. It's that conversation, having that conversation. But conversations sometimes need a bit of structure. And the way backlog grooming is explained, you can see the structure, how to do this introduction of the user stories who are new to the team, and accepting them by the team, making your planning, and making your detailed requirements analysis. So what you actually do, and this sheet will come later with more detail on it, you've got a user story, and we start making system requirements. And I have to admit, if I haven't found a book about Scrum or Agile that uses the word system requirements. I think maybe we're on the wrong track now, but, well, it works in the unicorn world. Every employee of Cisco is trained in both testing and requirements analysis. They should also be able to do both. Quite a lot of people are not able to do both, but that's what we aim for. So, and everybody is trained in IRAP, which is an international standard for requirements analysis. And there the word system requirements is used quite often, so we use this best practice in Scrum. But we make the user requirements. I was at this great dojo about user stories, and they gave us another way, the scenario. I've read something about scenarios, but they made it really practical, so maybe next year, when I'm doing the same presentation, it will not say system requirement. Maybe it will say scenario. There are different ways to do what I'm trying to tell you. We detail the user story by different system requirements. I will later show what a system requirement is, and that's one of the tasks of the requirements analyst tester. What are you doing as a tester? I also doubted, really, at about 11 o'clock, I put it in the presentation, put it out, put it in, put it out. I think you all know this, but in case you don't know, please search for Jon Bach if you want to know more about it. You've got scripted testing, you've got freestyle exploratory testing, which is definitely very much fun, but shouldn't do it all the time. And there are different kinds of testing, and there are, like session-based testing isn't even in this image, but you can put it, I think, somewhere over here. And there are different ways you can put in this continuum from pure scripted to a freestyle exploratory. In the most of the teams I've interviewed, they're using test charters. This is really great. I saw some great examples this week. Yesterday by Hendrik Anderson was really brilliant. So we use chartered testing or session-based testing when we combine this. And what we actually do is take this system requirement and make it even more detailed by test points. Test points or test idea, it's used, both terms are used, is what you actually would like to test. Let's take a website where you can order books. You need to log in. So a test idea is, well, try to log in with a good user ID and password. Try to log in with a wrong user ID and password. You could make that 2 test points. Personally, I never do. A test point is a positive test point, and a negative you should also test if you have got time. So you have got different test points for each system requirement. And then we come to documentation. Please don't excommunicate me. I'm going to talk about communication. I know it says in the Agile manifesto, working software over comprehensive documentation. It does not say working software, so no documentation. That does not say it. It says over documentation. So let's make as little documentation as possible. Okay? You agreed with that? You don't throw me out, please? This is what we mostly use. In every team, this looks different. This is a test charter. I took the most simple one. I see very complicated test charts, and then I think it's too much documentation. But it's a thought idea. Please steal and tweak it for your own situation. Each system requirement has got a test charter, which use story, which priority. I doubt it if you can read it. If you want to have it, please send me an email or tweet me or by LinkedIn, contact me. You can have it, of course, for free. The goals. The possible issues of or defects. If you're doing one test chart, you find certain kind of defects. Please go look for the same kind of defects in the next system requirement or user story made by the same person, made by the same developer. He's probably going to make the same mistake over and over again until he's seen it so often that he doesn't do it anymore. So think upfront what the possible issues or defects are. A minority of the testers really do it, but I think it's a good practice. The test points, of course, which can be very long, and the defects or issues. You find an issue is something that blocks testing, that keeps you from testing everything, etc. Conclusions, which leads to a debrief, and at the bottom, but new test points. When you're testing, you think, hey, I would like to test this too. We haven't got that in a test charter. Please document them immediately because you forget them. So at the bottom, very important, new test points. Here we've got all the documentation on a functional level. Of course, there is some description of the user story, which is done by the product owner. But for the requirements engineer tester, this all the documentation he has. And of course, up front you're thinking, what can I test from this system requirement? And when you're testing, you're glad you have your test points. And of course, you have new test points, and you add them to your test charter if you have got enough time to finish it. Or use mind maps. It's about 50-50. Some use test charts, some use mind maps. In some projects, they started with test charters and changed to mind maps, and some testers are now using in the same projects different ways. Doesn't really matter. This is made in Xmind. FreeMind is also good. It's really superb what you can do with it. Well, I think it speaks for itself. This test case, test points should have been went great. This test case went wrong, and this is blocking. This in a specific project. This is blocking the shipping. This one's not, but we have a defect over here. This is here it says start. So here we have an issue. So we can't test this somehow. There could be more detail under it, of course. And these are ready to be tested, but not yet tested. Well, it's one way to do it. Find your own way. What are the consequences of this? I have to 5 after 12. Huh? Yeah, I'm on time. Okay. What are the consequences of this idea? Well, first of all, let's look at the timing. My first project I ever did was about 15 years ago. The first 3 years of my working life, I was implementing SAP. Then we at this project we developed the system by rapid application development, which can be seen as a predecessor of Scrum. I know there's someone mad now somewhere, but I know there are differences. But you're working with a multidisciplinary team in time boxes. That's at least the same. I was purely a tester, so no team, but. And at the start of the sprint, I had nothing to do. Of course, I went to meetings, and everybody asked me, "What are you doing here? There's nothing to test here." "Yeah, but I need information." "Well, we will document it, so why are you here?" That doesn't happen in Scrum anymore. I'm quite glad about it. But when you're the requirements analyst, you have the sweat on your back because you really have to work hard. You're in charge for the backlog grooming together with the product owner, of course. You have to refine the user stories into system requirements. You have to document that this way, that way, and in big projects, in small projects, the product owner can, in most cases, decide for himself, yeah, this is good. In big projects, there are more stakeholders. So they need to be informed somehow. So in some projects, after the backlog grooming, we do a validation session with the other stakeholders. I know that Scrum says that you should not do it, but we do it and we're happy about it. Steal and tweak. And during the sprint, this requirements and list still needs to explain the details of the system requirements and has to see if this specific implementation detail matches the system requirement, etc., etc. So the timeline looks like this. Is timeline a good word? Well, the effort line looks like this. So at the end of sprint, you don't have anything. You have almost nothing to do regarding your requirements work. Well, for the tester, at the start, he has to make his test design. But well, there's not much to design yet. We haven't got any system requirements yet, so I'm doing something with documentation, walking around with a lot of paper, so I look busy, but well, I do have some extra time, let's say, put it that way. Then I have my test preparation. If you do TDD, you're doing it together with the developer, but I've seen rarely any projects where they really do good TDD. It's difficult. And then during test execution, then you're really, really busy at this moment. Of course, everybody has to help you, but you're in the lead. If you slow down, the whole team slows down. So this is the effort line. I wonder if that's a good English word, but I guess you know what I mean. So let's put them in one graph, and what happens? Yeah, you're busy all the time. So great. The period of time you're busy with the requirements, you don't have to do much testing work, and when you don't have any time to do with requirements, you're busy with your test work. So eventually you're always busy, and maybe some of you went to this presentation by Lloyd Roden. You can't sprint all of the time, so make sure that maximum 75% of his time is planned with activities. But I'm sure that eventually, if you add these two together, the sum is lower than the two apart. So by combining things, and this goes naturally, this goes by itself, you spend less time at the end. Let's look at the knowledge. At the start of the sprint, the requirements engineer needs to know every detail about every user story. He talks hours and hours with the product owner, maybe other users, user representatives, stakeholders, whatever. And the tester, he should be everywhere present, but if you look at it that way, all team members should be present at all discussions. So what you often see is that the knowledge of the tester at the start is at a minimum, but later on, he gets more knowledge. So knowledge of the details of the user stories and the system requirements are in the heads of two different people. Well, why not combine this? So, it works. How about techniques? A lot of people are saying, listen, Jaap, this was my name in Dutch, by the way. Here's a bunch of techniques we know in requirements engineering, and a lot of them are not used officially not used in Scrum, but in practice sometimes they're still used. And these are a bunch of testing techniques, and there's no overlap between them. So it's a different occupation. So you're trying to learn two different occupations, and that's difficult. And I don't agree with it. If you look at, for instance, data flow diagram, well, you use it at your data flow test. It's about the same. The activity diagram is about the same. It's, exactly the same as a control flow test. I've got no idea who called this the control flow test. Why not activity flow test? It's really the same. The state transition diagram and the state diagram are almost the same. And use cases, which you can also use in Agile, okay, they don't have a test over here. And of course, in the new print of testing books, you see a new test techniques that's called use case testing. So really, in a sense, they're in each other's line. They're overlapping, at least. I think they're almost the same, actually. Let's go into detail to show you this. This is outside of Agile, I'm afraid, but we also use it within Agile. A technique that's used quite a lot. It's just a template for a system requirement. You have to read it like this: the system, the website or whatever, should, shall, or will, depending on the priority, do something, provide something with ability, or do something by itself, with something, maybe some details, and maybe some conditions. So, well, I'm not going to explain this in detail, but here's a system requirement I wrote myself, by the way, in an Agile project. On request of the on request of the client, the system shall show the delivery status of an ordered book. Well, it's completely clear what the system should do. And I'm going to do something strange now. First of all, I need some room. I'm going to shuffle things a bit around. First of all, I have to add the word das. Later on, you will understand why. And then I take this part of the sentence, das the system. And then I take this part of the sentence, show the delivery status of an ordered book on request of the client. Well, here's a capital O, so I have to make a small o of this, so this is what's happening now. Does the system show the delivery status of an ordered book on the request of the client? I see some people smiling a bit. What is this, actually? Sorry? It's it's a high level. Sorry. The shell, I have left the shell, so it is the highest priority. But yeah, you're definitely right. This is a high level test case. So the end product of the requirements analyst is the starting product of the test analyst. So actually, they're doing the same. They're doing twice the same thing. So let's combine it. It's just language-wise, another way of putting the words in another direction. But actually, a system requirement is the same as a high-level test case. So why do it twice? Do it once. We need to be fast. And some projects call this an acceptance criterion. If you meet this, then we're happy. So we put our test cases below it. It's based on practice, so you see different ways of using it. But system requirement, if you do it well, if you do it in line with the IRAP requirements, IRAP, if you do it in line with IRAP, then you already make high-level test cases. So, will this be the future for you? Do you all have to be do you all have to be requirements analysts as well? Well, maybe. I think if we have big organization or even in small projects, if you can deliver more value with less time, clients will start doing this. Organizations will start doing this. In my world, client, they will start doing this. There's this one particular client who says, you're the only one in Holland offering this. So I always want to have someone from Cisco because they know testing and they know requirements engineering. It's great. We make even money with it. So I think this could be the future. And I did something wrong here. Sorry, I'll come to this later. I'm not the only one. I thought until a couple of days ago that we were the only one who was seeing this. So, and if you were the only one who was seeing this, maybe you are wrong. But well, clients are happy with it. We are happy with it. We really think this works. But yesterday, when I first saw this sheet presented by Paul Gerard, who's here, you can't really see on the sheet that it's made by Paul Gerard, but this is your sheet, isn't it? Yes. He was actually saying the same thing. So at first I was thinking, hey, wait a minute, Paul, stop this presentation. This is my presentation. And I tweeted it, but he didn't react on that moment. But I could understand that. But on the other way, I'm more sure that this is really a possibility. Paul is not sure if it should be combined in one person. I think it should be combined, but we'll get over that difference. So more people are saying this. These sheets, well, there are advantages and disadvantages. First of all, you combine work, and with that, you save time, you save money. You have less discussion. Unless you're a you have a split personality, you don't have to discuss with yourself the meaning of the system requirement if you have made it yourself. True or not? You've got less communication. I'm not against communication, but only communication you need. And if you combine things in one person, you have less time spent on communication because you don't need this communication. And for me personally, it made me a far better tester to be a requirements engineer for a couple of years. So, and all testers are saying this. It may be a more complete professional. Of course, there are backdraws. Suppose you have a very bad requirements analyst in your project. You better have a good tester. Sure, you better have a good tester. Because he will find all the failures. But if you combine this, and this one person is not very good, you have a single point of failure, and then you have a real problem. Secondly, testers have a very critical view. You all know that you're all testers, and you're this annoying person who's always right. Yeah, that's our job. You have one critical view less. Maybe you should do something extra to get this critical view in your project again. For instance, requirements validation. It works. Time management. You could keep on working. Yeah, thank you. Okay, you could keep on working on your requirements, but you have to prepare your testing as well, and you have to master 2 disciplines. But if you look at these, there are benefits in terms of quality, money, and time, and there are risks, and you can control these risks. I haven't got the time to go into detail, but for instance, here. Do a good requirements validation helps you to avoid this risk. So I'm sure if you manage it well, and it's not going always perfect, but if you manage it well, the benefits will be higher than the costs. This sheet. What does it mean for you personally? First of all, can you do it? Becoming a requirements analyst takes time, takes effort, takes energy. You need to invest in it, and well, not everybody can do it. Some people really can't. And there's one problem I would like to share. As a lot of testers say, I need information, I need specifications, I need info to base my test on. So where's the info? As a requirements analyst, you have a greenfield situation. There is no info. You need to search for it. Some testers are good in it. Some testers are not. And there are people who stick to what I'm a tester, I'm a tester. No, you're not a tester. You're a team member. So don't stick to what's good. Go out, explore the world, go do new things. By the way, everybody in this room, I think, is in this one. And I mean it. You're all agile testers. The change from a scripted tester to an agile tester, if you can make that change, I'm pretty sure you can make this change. So, what does it mean for you if you want to go this way? Well, it's not a way up the Everest. It's not that high, that mountain. It's a small mountain actually. Go read some books. Of course, every Dutchman reads Success with the Requirements, or at least buy it. Can't have very expensive wives, so please. Some English books, Master Requirements Process, not specific Agile, but it's a brilliant book in English. Read Agile Software Requirements, whatever book about requirements, go read it. Maybe get an IRAP certification. I once said this on a blog, and some people were really, really pissed off when I said this, but it's really my meaning. Also learn things outside of testing, and requirements analysis could be a good choice here. So I wish you the best with the future. Don't know if there are any questions at this moment. I think, yeah, well, we have 8 minutes for questions.
I think the story makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Nobody has actually been able to explain to me what's the difference between an analyst and a tester.
Yeah.
At least to my satisfaction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When I look at your picture, I see something which I, for
Yeah. Yeah. There's this commercial in the Netherlands where so someone is trying to explain something about retirement funds, and when she's starting to explain what he will get an amount of money, he's talking Chinese to this guy. And I think the world of a developer and a user can be, not always, but can be very wide apart. And a lot of developers have real difficulty to get closer to this user world. It's not 100% of the developers. Users always have difficulties, mostly have difficulties to get into the development world. So maybe we should be this a turning point where it comes together, and we should both master the language, the Chinese of the developer and the English of the user. The T-shaped person, everybody familiar with a T-shaped person? There's our test knowledge, here's our IT knowledge, here's our user knowledge, and that makes a T. I would like to make an N of it. Test knowledge, requirements knowledge, and somewhere in between some other things. It would be perfect if there would also overlap, but it's not always possible. Yeah. But I'll show the analysis part of testing and requirements analysis is about the same. Yeah, we agree on that. There's another question here. Yeah.
Thank you for presentation.
Thank you.
But I can't imagine in my everyday life, like how I can do requirements analysis and testing, because I'm too busy in testing.
Yeah.
But if I imagine, I have question: who will check me? Tester is checking analysts and in some other kind. Yeah. But who will check me if I'm doing two jobs?
Yeah. That's about your. Forgot the first point. Yeah, who's checking you? The single point of failure. Oh yeah, I know. Of course, if you have two persons, one for requirements analysis, one for testing, you can't replace that by one person for both. Doesn't work that way. Maybe I don't have figures, so maybe you will save 10-20%. So in a big project, you would do the testing and requirements analysis of a smaller part than the testing of a bigger part. That will be the difference. In a lot of small projects, we're actually doing this already for years. Then one person is doing everything on a functional level. The second question was, who makes sure you work well? There are different solutions for this, and I don't have one solution that fits every situation. There are organizations who have somewhere outside of the team someone who is assuring that you're doing good work. Sometimes there are peers who do it. Sometimes it's not there, and then you better hope, or when you're religious, you better pray that you're doing a good job. Then you take the risk. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, the business user. I haven't given that thought. Thank you. Yeah. You gave me something to think about. Thank you. Yeah. You should try that. Okay. There's another question over there.
Thank you for the talk. My question is, it's all fine when we're talking about smaller domains. So where the area of expertise doesn't have to be that big, where you as a requirements analyst are able to grasp whole context. But with bigger projects, I don't really see a person being an expert in testing and in whatever big domain you choose.
Yeah. Well, we are actually doing this in bigger projects, so it works, but how come? But in bigger projects, if you have different, there's mostly too much work for one product owner. So you have different product owners. There's too much work for one tester, so you have different testers. And how do you combine that. What we do in a lot of projects is this requirements engineer testers who are in the different teams. When they're developing simultaneously, they have two stand-ups. The stand-up with their team, and 1 or 2 times a week, it differs from project to project, with all the tester requirements and this from the different teams to make sure that the software that's coming out of the different teams is in line with each other. So, but it's not really different if you combine it or not to have or tackle this problem. You have got the same problem, the same solutions. That doesn't really make a difference. It's not a satisfying answer, I know. yeah. But we're also struggling with these kind of things. I have to admit that. I don't have the one silver bullet. There's no such thing like a silver bullet. This always works. Try it.